We're sitting in my living room. My wife, Emily's family, all of them, parents, two sisters, a brother, gathered for what was supposed to be a casual Sunday afternoon visit. Then her father, Gerald, brought up the Vegas trip. "We're thinking Labor Day weekend," he says. Casual, confident, like he's describing the weather. Family trip, everyone. Could be really special. Emily lights up. "That sounds amazing. When would we book?" Her mother, Patricia, waves a hand. "Soon. We just need to coordinate the logistics. Hotels, flights, all that." Her sister, Melissa, chimes in. "We should do a nice place. Really make it special. We never do anything like this." The conversation continues. Everyone excited, energized, making plans. Then Gerald looks at me. "David, would you mind putting the deposits on your card? Just to lock everything in. We'll sort it later." There it is. The phrase I've heard 24 times over 5 years of marriage. Just put it on your card. We'll sort it later. No amounts discussed. No limits acknowledged. No specific timeline for later. Just the assumption that my card is available, that I'll cover it, that we'll sort it at some undefined future point. Emily looks at me, expectant, supportive of her family, assuming I'll agree like I always do. I smile. "Sure." Gerald nods, satisfied. "Great, I'll send you the links. Just book everything under your name. We'll reimburse you once everyone's settled." Once everyone's settled. Another vague promise. Another timeline that doesn't exist. "No problem," I say. The conversation moves on. They're discussing restaurants now, shows to see, how much fun it's going to be. I pull out my phone, open my banking app, navigate to the credit card settings, find the spending controls section, set a temporary spending cap, $500, effective immediately, save changes. I put my phone away, rejoin the conversation, smile, nod, say nothing. They wanted to use my card. I agreed, exactly as they asked. Nothing more. They'll sort it later. Right now, they have $500. That's the sorting. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. Let me explain how we got here. How "just put it on your card" became the default assumption in my relationship with Emily's family. It started innocently enough. 5 years ago, shortly after Emily and I got married, we went to dinner with her parents, nice restaurant, celebrating something, I don't even remember what. When the check came, Gerald reached for his wallet, made a show of patting his pockets. "Ah, I left my card at home. David, could you grab this? I'll pay you back tomorrow." Of course. I paid. $180 for 6 people. Fine. Tomorrow came. No mention of the $180. I didn't push. It felt petty to ask about it immediately. A week passed. Still nothing. I mentioned it to Emily. "Oh, just text him," she said. "I'm sure he just forgot." I texted, casual. "Hey Gerald, no rush, but just wanted to check about that dinner from last week." His response came 3 hours later. "Oh right, sorry, been swamped. I'll get it to you soon." Soon. Another vague timeline. 2 weeks later, still nothing. I mentioned it to Emily again. "He's probably just busy. Don't stress about it. It's $180. It's $180. The beginning of a pattern I didn't recognize yet. 3 months later, the money finally appeared. Venmo notification. $180 from Gerald. No message, no apology, just the transfer. I should have noticed the pattern then. Should have seen what was being established. My money was accessible, flexible, available. Repayment was optional, eventual, on their timeline. But I didn't notice, or I ignored it, because Emily's family was important to her, because I wanted to be generous, because $180 didn't seem worth creating conflict. 6 months after that, it happened again. Family weekend trip to a lake house. Emily's sister Melissa suggested we all go in on a rental. It's $200 for the weekend, she said. If we split it 6 ways, that's $200 each. Reasonable, I agreed. Great. David, can you book it? Just easier to have one person's card on file. We'll all Venmo you our shares. I booked it. $200 on my card. The weekend came. Everyone had a great time. Then everyone left. No one sent their share. I waited a week, then texted the family group chat. Casual, friendly. Hey everyone, just a reminder about the lake house split. $200 per couple. Thanks. Emily's brother Ryan responded first. Oh yeah, totally forgot. I'll get it to you next week. Melissa. Same. Sorry, been so busy. Gerald. We'll send soon. Patricia. No response. Next week came. Nothing. I texted again. Less casual. More direct. Hey, still waiting on the lake house payments. $200 per couple. Can everyone send by Friday? Ryan. Sorry, man. Cash is tight this month. Can I get it to you in 2 weeks? Melissa. Same here. Next month, okay? Gerald. David, you're not hurting for the money. Can't we just settle this later? I looked at that text for a long time. You're not hurting for the money. That was the reframing, the shift from we owe you to you don't need it, from debt to favor, from repayment to generosity. I didn't respond, didn't push, because Emily asked me not to. They'll pay you back, she said. They always do eventually. Don't make it weird. Eventually. That word again. Eventually came 4 months later. Partial payments. $150 from Ryan, $100 from Melissa, $200 from Gerald. Patricia never sent anything. Total recovered. $450 out of $200. Net loss. $750 for a weekend where I paid full price to watch everyone else enjoy a discounted vacation. But I didn't say anything. Because family, because Emily, because keeping the peace. That was 2 years ago. Since then, the pattern had accelerated. Christmas gifts for the extended family? David, can you order everything on Amazon? We'll split it later. I ordered $800 worth of gifts. Recovered $200. Mother's Day brunch? Let's put it on one card. Easier that way. Guess whose card? $300 brunch. Recovered $50. Emily's sister's birthday dinner? David's treating. I wasn't asked. I was informed. $400 dinner. Recovered $0. Over 5 years, I'd lent Emily's family approximately $8,000. I'd recovered maybe $2,000. Net cost, $6,000 for the privilege of being their walking ATM. And the most insulting part? They never thanked me. Never acknowledged the pattern. Never showed gratitude for what had become an expected service. Instead, they'd started making comments about my good job and how I must be doing well and how nice it must be to have financial flexibility. My success had become their justification for using me. I made good money, senior product manager at a tech company, $140,000 salary, comfortable, but not unlimited, not cover everyone's expenses indefinitely, comfortable. But they assumed. They operated as if my financial stability was a communal resource, as if my credit card was an extension of family support rather than my personal financial instrument. And I'd let them. For 5 years. Because I loved Emily. Because I wanted her family to like me. Because I didn't want to be the guy who makes everything about money. Until today. Until, just put it on your card, we'll sort it later, was applied to a Vegas trip. No discussion of budget. No breakdown of costs. No consideration of whether I could afford to float a family vacation for 6 adults. Just assumption, entitlement, expectation, so I agreed, exactly as they asked. I'd put it on my card, with a $500 limit. They wanted flexibility. I gave them clarity. After they left, Emily found me in the kitchen. That's so exciting. Vegas with everyone. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, should be fun. Thanks for offering to book everything. I know my family can be a lot with the money stuff. A lot. That was one way to describe 5 years of systematic financial exploitation disguised as family generosity. No problem. She kissed me on the cheek, went to take a shower, left me alone with my thoughts and the decision I'd just made. I pulled out my phone, looked at the spending cap I'd set while they were still in my living room. $500. The number glowed on my screen. Final. Definitive. A line in the sand they didn't know existed yet. Was I being petty, vindictive, setting them up to fail? Or was I finally establishing a boundary that should have existed years ago? I thought about the pattern, the $8,000 over 5 years, the vague promises that turned into months of silence, the guilt trips when I tried to collect, the masterful reframing of debt as greed. You're not hurting for the money. Gerald's voice in my head, making my financial stability the reason I shouldn't care about repayment. Don't make it weird, Emily's standard response when I brought up unpaid debts, as if expecting repayment was the weird part, not owing money you promised to return. We'll sort it later. The eternal promise. Later. Always later. Never now. Never a specific date. Never an actual plan. Just the vague assurance that eventually, someday, in some undefined future, they'd handle it. Every phrase designed to make me feel like the problem. Like asking for repayment was ungracious. Like expecting people to honor their commitments was unreasonable. Like having boundaries around my money made me small-minded and selfish. No, I wasn't being petty. I was being clear. They'd asked to use my card. I'd agreed. Those were the facts. But I'd set a limit, a reasonable limit for deposits and initial bookings. $500 was more than enough for that purpose. If they needed more, they could discuss it, ask about it, negotiate, actually engage in the sorting they kept promising. But they wouldn't discuss it, because that would require acknowledging that there might be limits, that my resources weren't infinite, that my generosity wasn't a bottomless well they could draw from indefinitely. They operated under the assumption of unlimited access, and that assumption was about to be tested, in the most concrete way possible. I sat there in the kitchen, phone in hand, thinking through what I'd done, really thinking through the implications. The $500 limit was active on my Visa card, the one they expected me to use for booking everything, the one I'd been using for 5 years whenever they needed something covered. The card they thought of as available rather than David's. But spending caps on credit cards are tricky. I'd learned that during my brief stint working in banking before my product management career. The mechanics aren't what most people assume. A spending cap doesn't create a hard stop like a debit card with insufficient funds. Instead, it creates a soft limit that the card issuer monitors. Online transactions often go through because they're authorized first and settled later. The cap might not kick in until settlement, or it might not work at all for certain merchant categories. That was a problem. If Gerald sent me links to book online, the charges might go through despite the cap. I'd end up floating the full $5,100 anyway. The limit would be meaningless. I needed a different approach. I needed the limit to be hard, immediate, undeniable, something that would create a clear public boundary at the exact moment they exceeded it. That meant in-person transactions, physical card swipes, the kind where the limit is enforced in real time at the point of sale. I started planning, really planning, not just setting a limit, but engineering a situation where that limit would be encountered exactly how I wanted. First, make sure online booking wouldn't work. Call the credit card company. Set additional restrictions. Make the card in-person only. Second, suggest an in-person booking scenario. The travel agency. Old school, but perfect. Everyone would be there. Everyone would witness the moment. No hiding. No ambiguity. Third, say nothing. Don't warn them. Don't explain. Don't give them opportunity to argue or negotiate before the limit manifested. Just let them discover it naturally, organically, in the most undeniable way possible. I felt something between excitement and dread. Excitement because I was finally drawing a line. Dread because I knew what was coming: conflict, anger, accusations. But the dread wasn't enough to stop me, because I'd realized something crucial. I'd been conflict avoidant for 5 years, and all that avoidance had done was enable them to exploit me more thoroughly. Sometimes conflict is necessary. Sometimes it's the only way to establish truth. I left the cap in place, didn't mention it to Emily, didn't announce it to her family, just let it exist, quietly, waiting for them to discover it. The links came 2 days later, Tuesday afternoon, group text from Gerald sent to everyone. Okay, everyone, here are the booking links. David, can you handle these today? Want to lock in the prices before they go up. 3 links. 1. Hotel, Bellagio. 4 rooms, 3 nights. Labor Day weekend. Estimated $2,400. 2. Flights. 6 tickets. Round trip from Newark to Las Vegas. Estimated $1,800. 3. Show tickets. 6 seats at Cirque du Soleil. Premium section. Estimated $900. Total estimate, $5,100. For a trip where I'd be one of 6 adults, where my mathematically fair share would be $850, but where I was expected to float the entire $5,100 up front with vague promises of repayment later. $5,100, more than I'd ever lent them in a single transaction. The largest single use my card request yet, and still no discussion of amounts, no timeline, no acknowledgement of the financial burden they were assuming I'd carry. I didn't respond immediately, let the text sit for 15 minutes, watched as others chimed in with enthusiasm. Melissa: OMG, the Bellagio! So excited! I've always wanted to stay there! Ryan: those flight times work perfectly. Wednesday afternoon, back Sunday night, perfect. Patricia: this is going to be wonderful. Thank you for organizing, Gerald. Emily: babe, did you see the links? Dad's waiting for you to book. I responded in the group, keeping it simple. Yep, on it. But I wasn't on it, not the way they expected. Instead, I opened the first link. Hotel booking, went through the process, selected the dates. 4 rooms, 3 nights, premium lake view, all the details Gerald had specified. Got to the payment screen, entered my card information, the Visa with the $500 limit. Click Submit. Processing. Charge approved. $2,400. Wait. Approved? I immediately checked my banking app. The $500 limit was still showing as active. No changes, but the hotel charge had gone through. Full $2,400. Already pending on my account. Exactly what I'd feared. Online transactions bypassing the spending cap. The limit was active, but it wasn't enforcing. It was advisory, not mandatory. The card issuer had authorized the charge despite the cap because it was a legitimate merchant, a reasonable purchase, and there was available credit. The $500 limit was meaningless for online booking. My carefully laid boundary was going to be completely ineffective. No, that wasn't going to work. I needed to fix this. Now. I canceled the hotel booking immediately, found the cancellation link in the confirmation email, clicked through, confirmed cancellation. Did it within the 30-minute full refund window. Charge reversed, pending transaction removed, clean slate again. But the problem remained. How do I make the limit actually work? I needed to change the card's capabilities, make online booking impossible, force in-person transactions only. I called my credit card company, got through to customer service after the usual automated menu navigation. Thank you for calling. How can I help you today? Hi, I need to set up some specific controls on my card. Account ending in 7823. Let me pull that up. Okay, I have your account. What kind of controls are you looking to set? I need to restrict this card for in-person transactions only. No online bookings, no phone transactions, no mail order, just physical card swipes. Pause on the line. That's an unusual restriction, sir. May I ask why? Fraud prevention. I've had some concerns about my card information being compromised online. I want to restrict it to physical transactions where I'm present. I understand. Let me be clear about what this means. You won't be able to use this card for any online purchases yourself. Any e-commerce, Any app-based payments, any online subscriptions. It will only work when you physically swipe or insert the card at a terminal. That's exactly what I want. And you have other payment methods for online purchases? Yes, I have multiple cards. This one will be my in-person card only. Okay, give me just a moment to set this up. I heard typing, clicking, system sounds. All right, I've restricted your card to in-person point-of-sale transactions only. Online, phone, and mail order transactions will be automatically declined. This takes effect immediately. And the spending cap? I have a $500 daily limit set. Yes, I see that. That limit will apply to your in-person transactions. So each in-person purchase will be limited to $500 or the total daily accumulated transactions, whichever comes first. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, that's everything, thank you. You're welcome. Have a great day. I hung up, smiled. The pieces were in place. My card was now 1. Restricted to in-person transactions only, online booking impossible. 2. Limited to $500, hard cap that would enforce at point of sale. 3. Ready to be encountered by Gerald and his family in the most public way possible. Now I needed to engineer the situation where they'd discover the limit. Somewhere public, somewhere undeniable, somewhere they'd all be present to witness. The travel agency. Perfect solution. I texted the group. Hey, ran into some issues with the online booking. Card keeps getting declined for online transactions. Bank security thing. Can everyone meet me at Travel Masters on Saturday morning? 10 a.m.? We can book everything in person. Should be easier that way. Travel Masters, a family-owned agency that still existed in our area. Old school, personal service, physical location, most importantly, physical card transactions. Gerald responded first. Travel agency? Can't we just do it online? Way easier. Me, having some technical issues with my card for online purchases. Security flags. In person will work better. Plus, we can review everything together. Make sure we're all on the same page. Ryan. Lowell who uses travel agencies anymore? Just fix your card settings. Me. Trust me. In person is better for this. Bank recommended it. Saturday at 10? Melissa. I guess if we have to, but that's early for a Saturday. Me. We can do 11 if that's better. Gerald. Fine. 11 a.m. Saturday. Everyone be there. Let's get this booked. I had 3 days. 3 days to prepare, to think through what would happen, to ready myself for the confrontation that was coming. Emily asked about it that night while we were watching TV. What's going on with your card? Just some security settings. Online purchases were flagged. Bank wants me to use it in person for large transactions. Can't you just call them and fix it? I did. This is the fix. In person only for now. Seems inconvenient. It's temporary, just for the Vegas bookings, security reasons. Okay. Weird, but okay. She went back to watching TV. Didn't question further. Didn't suspect. Why would she? For 5 years, I'd been the reliable one. The one who said yes. The one who made things easy. She had no reason to think this was anything other than what I'd said. A banking security issue. But it wasn't. It was a boundary. Carefully constructed. Deliberately engineered. Waiting to be encountered. Saturday morning came. I woke up at 8 a.m., made coffee, ate breakfast, tried to prepare myself emotionally for what was coming. The confrontation, the anger, the blame, the inevitable, you knew this would happen, accusations. But I also felt calm, clear, certain. I wasn't ambushing them. I was enforcing a limit they should have known existed. That they would have known existed if they'd ever asked. If they'd ever engaged with me as a person rather than a resource. Emily and I arrived at Travel Masters at 10:55 a.m. Her family was already there, all of them, Gerald, Patricia, Melissa, Ryan, plus Melissa's husband Jake and Ryan's girlfriend Sophie, 8 adults, for a trip designed for 6. Apparently the guest list had expanded. We went inside, Small office, dated decor, posters of tropical beaches and European cities, a desk with a woman in her 60s, Dorothy, according to her nameplate. "Hello, you must be the Vegas group," Gerald called ahead. "Come on in, let's get you set up." We all gathered around her desk. Dorothy pulled up booking sites on her computer. "Okay, let's see. Vegas, Labor Day weekend. I have some wonderful options. The Bellagio is beautiful, and for 6 adults, actually 8 now," Melissa interjected. "Jake and Sophie are coming too." I felt a spike of anger. Of course they were. No one had asked me. No one had mentioned it. The group just kept expanding with the assumption that my card would cover it all. Dorothy recalculated. 8 adults. Okay, so we'll need, that changes the booking significantly. 4 rooms instead of 3. 8 flights. 8 show tickets. She worked through the math. New total comes to about $6,800. $6,800, nearly $7,000, for a trip where my fair share, if we split evenly, would be $850. But they weren't thinking about splitting evenly. They were thinking about me covering all of it. Sorting it later. Which would mean, if pattern held, I'd recover maybe $2,000 over the next 2 years. Net cost to me, $4,800, for a vacation I didn't even fully want. "Okay," Dorothy said brightly. "Will this be one card or split between multiple?" Everyone looked at me, expectant, assuming. This was it, the moment. "Let's start with mine," I said. Pulled out my Visa, the one with the $500 limit, handed it to Dorothy. She took it, smiled, started processing the booking. Hotels first. 4 rooms, 3 nights, Bellagio. She swiped my card. The machine beeped, longer than usual. Then, declined. Dorothy frowned. That's odd. Let me try again." She swiped again. Same result. Declined. "Your card seems to be declining. Do you have another one?" "What? That's impossible." I feigned confusion. Pulled out my phone. "Let me check my account." Opened my banking app. Made a show of reviewing it. I think it might have hit my daily transaction limit. I have a $500 limit set for fraud protection. Silence around the table. You could hear the air conditioning humming. Gerald spoke first, voice tight. "A $500 limit? David, we're trying to book a $7,000 trip." "I know. I didn't realize we'd expanded to 8 people. That changes things significantly." "But your card limit? $500? "Yeah, for security, fraud prevention. My bank recommended it." "You could have mentioned that before." "You never asked about my card's limits. You just asked to use it. I assumed you'd want to discuss amounts if you needed more than what the limit allowed." Melissa jumped in. "But we told you what we were booking. The hotels, the flights, the shows. You knew it was going to be thousands." "I knew what the bookings would cost. I didn't know there were limits on my card capacity. Nobody asked. We never discussed it." Patricia, quieter than the others. "We thought you'd cover it, that we'd reimburse you later." "Reimburse $7,000? When? How? Nobody's ever paid me back in full for anything. I've lent your family $8,000 over 5 years. I've gotten back maybe $2,000. Why would I float another $7,000 based on that track record?" The room was completely silent now. Dorothy looked deeply uncomfortable, probably wishing she'd gone into a different line of work. Gerald's face was red. "This is ridiculous, David. You make good money. You can afford to help your family." "Help? That's an interesting word. Is it help when I never get paid back? Is it help when every request comes with vague promises that never materialize? Or is it just exploitation dressed as generosity?" "We've always paid you back." "Partially, eventually, after I ask multiple times. That's not paying me back. That's placating me just enough to keep the resource available." Emily grabbed my arm. "David, not here, please." I looked at her. "Where then? When? How many more times am I supposed to float thousands of dollars and hope for the best?" She didn't answer. I turned to Dorothy. "Can we split this? 8 separate bookings? Everyone pays their own share?" Dorothy looked relieved to have a solution. Of course, that's actually easier. So each couple would be responsible for their hotel room, their flights, their show tickets. Comes to about $1,700 per couple. I pulled out my Amex, the one without limits. I'll book mine and Emily's. $1,700. Let's do that first. Dorothy processed it. Approved. Booked. Perfect. Who's next? Nobody moved. Everyone just stared at me. Nobody else wants to book? I asked. Gerald finally spoke, voice cold. We need to discuss this privately, as a family. Okay. Dorothy, thank you for your time. We'll come back if we decide to proceed. We all filed out, stood in the parking lot, awkward, angry, confused. Gerald pulled me aside. Emily followed. What the hell was that? He hissed. That was me enforcing a boundary, something I should have done years ago. You embarrassed us, in front of a stranger. You assumed unlimited access to my money. That's embarrassing for both of us. We're family, David. Family asks, family discusses, family doesn't assume. You've been assuming for 5 years. That stops now. Emily was crying. You should have told us, about the limit, about all of it. You should have asked. You should have treated me like a person instead of a walking ATM, every single one of you. I walked to my car. Emily got in. We drove home in complete silence, and the $500 limit, the boundary I'd carefully constructed, had done exactly what I'd intended. It had made visible what they'd preferred to keep invisible. There were limits. To my money, to my generosity, to my willingness to be exploited. They'd hit that limit in under 3 minutes of Dorothy trying to process a booking. And now, finally, they knew. Access isn't ownership. Generosity isn't unlimited. And I wasn't furniture. I was a person with boundaries. Whether they'd respect those boundaries remained to be seen, but they'd definitely encountered them. Hard, undeniably, publicly. That was step 1. Me. Just some security settings, nothing to worry about. The travel agency will work fine. She didn't push, accepted it. Saturday came. Everyone met at the travel agency, a small office in a strip mall, run by a woman in her 60s named Dorothy, who'd been booking travel since before the internet existed. Wonderful, Dorothy said when we all arrived. Let me pull up your options. We went through everything. Hotels, flights, shows. Dorothy built out a complete package. Okay, total for everything comes to $5,300. Prices went up slightly since you first looked. Will that be one card? Everyone looked at me. Yes, I said. My card. I handed it to Dorothy. She swiped it. The machine beeped. Processing. Then, declined. Dorothy frowned. That's odd. Let me try again. She swiped again. Declined. Your card might be frozen. Do you want to call your bank? Actually, I said calmly, I think it hit my daily limit. Let me check. I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, showed nothing to anyone, just looked thoughtful. Yeah, I have a $500 daily limit set for fraud protection. We'll need to split this differently. Silence. Gerald stared at me. A $500 limit? David, we're trying to book a $5,000 trip. I know. That's why we'll need to split it. Everyone can put their portion on their own cards. Dorothy, can we split this 6 ways? Dorothy looked relieved. Of course. Much easier, actually. So that would be about $880 per couple. I pulled out a different card. My personal Amex. No limits. I'll pay my share. More silence. Patricia spoke up. I thought you were covering it, that we'd sort it later. I'm covering my portion, $883. The rest of you can cover yours. That's the sorting. David, Gerald's voice had an edge. We agreed you'd put it on your card. I did, but my card has a $500 limit, so we'll need another solution. Why didn't you mention the limit before? You didn't ask. You just said to put it on my card. I agreed, but I never said my card was unlimited. Emily grabbed my arm. David, can we talk outside? Sure. We stepped out to the parking lot. She looked furious. What are you doing? Paying my share of the trip. $883. You know what I mean. You're embarrassing my family. I'm establishing a boundary that should have existed years ago. A $500 limit? Really? You make $140,000 a year and you set a $500 limit? Because your family has used my card as a blank check for 5 years. I've lent $8,000. I've gotten back $2,000. I'm done floating expenses for people who promise to sort it later and never do. They always pay you back. Partially. Eventually. After I ask multiple times and get made to feel like the problem. Your dad literally told me I'm not hurting for the money, as if that justifies not repaying a loan. They're family, David. You help family. I have been helping, for 5 years. What I'm not doing anymore is being an unlimited ATM. So you set a trap? You let them think you'd cover it and then humiliated them in a travel agency? I didn't set a trap. I agreed to put it on my card. I did exactly what they asked. They assumed unlimited access. That's not my fault. You should have told them about the limit. They should have asked. They should have discussed amounts. They should have treated me like a person instead of a resource. She was crying now. You're ruining the trip. You're ruining everything. The trip isn't ruined. Everyone just needs to pay their own share, like adults. They can't afford it all at once. Then maybe we should have discussed budget before booking a $5,000 vacation. You're being cruel. I'm being clear. There's a difference. I walked back inside. Everyone was standing awkwardly around Dorothy's desk. So, I said. Who wants to book? Nobody moved. Gerald cleared his throat. This is ridiculous, David. You said you'd cover it. I said I'd put it on my card. My card has a $500 limit. You want unlimited access? That requires a conversation. About amounts, about timelines, about actual repayment plans, not vague promises to sort it later. We always pay you back. Partially. Eventually. After I beg for it. That stops now. So the trip is canceled? Melissa looked like she might cry. No. The trip happens if everyone pays their share. Dorothy, can we book one portion at a time? One couple at a time? Dorothy nodded gratefully. Absolutely. Great. I'll go first. I handed her my Amex. Book my portion. 1 room, 1 flight, 1 show ticket. Emily and me. She processed it. $1,166 for 2 people. Done, Dorothy said. Who's next? Nobody moved. Nobody else is booking? I asked. Gerald. We need time to figure out finances. Okay, the offer stands. Book when you're ready. Dorothy, thanks for your help. We left. Emily drove home in silence. When we got home, she went straight to the bedroom, slammed the door. I sat in the living room, checked my phone. Group text from Gerald. This is very disappointing, David. We thought we could count on you. I didn't respond. Text from Melissa. You really hurt Mom's feelings. I didn't respond. Text from Ryan. Dude, not cool. I didn't respond. They wanted me to feel guilty, to cave, to apologize and offer to cover everything. But I didn't feel guilty. I felt clear. They'd spent 5 years training me to be their ATM, conditioning me to accept vague promises and partial repayments as normal. Today, I'd stopped accepting it. They wanted flexibility. I gave them clarity. $500, that's the limit. That's the sorting. The next 3 days were cold. Emily barely spoke to me, slept on the couch, took her meals alone, left for work early, came home late, communicated in monosyllables when communication was unavoidable. Morning. Hi. Good night. That was it. That was our marriage for 72 hours, reduced to fragments, casualties of a boundary I'd finally enforced. Her family group chat was silent. Nobody booking. Nobody discussing alternatives. Just radio silence and resentment radiating through digital silence. I checked the group occasionally. Read receipts showed everyone was seeing messages, but nobody was sending them. They were talking elsewhere. Probably in a separate chat without me. Planning, regrouping, deciding how to handle the problem, me. I wasn't invited to that conversation, which was fine. I didn't need to be. I'd said what needed saying in the travel agency parking lot. The rest was their processing. On Tuesday evening, my phone buzzed. Text from Ryan. Dude, what you did was really messed up. Making mom cry like that. Making us all look bad in front of a stranger. Over money. It's just money. Just money. Easy to say when it's not your money. When you've never been the one floating thousands with empty promises of repayment. I didn't respond. Another text came 30 minutes later. Melissa this time. I can't believe you'd humiliate Dad like that. He's been stressed about finances for years, and you just publicly emasculated him. For what? A power play? You've changed, David. You're not the person Emily married. I read it 3 times, considered responding, considered explaining that the person Emily married was someone who'd been conditioned over 5 years to accept exploitation as love. That change wasn't corruption, it was growth. But I didn't respond. Nothing I could say would land. Not yet. Not while they were still processing the shock of encountering a limit they'd assumed didn't exist. Wednesday morning brought an email. Patricia. Subject line. We need to talk. David, I've been thinking about Saturday, about what happened, about what you said. I know you're angry and I understand why. But we're family. We work things out. We don't air dirty laundry in public. We don't hurt each other like this. Can we please meet? Just you and me? Coffee? I want to understand what's really going on. Love. Patricia. Love. She signed it with love. After 5 years of using me, after taking $8,000 and returning $2,000, after treating my generosity as entitlement, I responded simply, Saturday was me enforcing a boundary that should have existed from the beginning. That's what's really going on. I'm happy to meet if you want to discuss how we move forward with actual respect and actual repayment plans. Let me know. No response. On Wednesday evening, Emily finally broke her silence, found me in the living room where I was reading. They canceled the trip. I looked up. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying, probably a lot, probably with her family, probably about me. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say? That you're sorry? That you feel bad about ruining it? That you didn't mean for it to go this far? I didn't ruin anything. I offered to pay my share, $1,700. I booked it. I'm still ready to go. They chose not to book their portions. That's their choice, not my fault. Because they can't afford it all at once. You know that. You've always known that. Then maybe we shouldn't have been planning a $7,000 vacation. Maybe we should have started with a budget discussion. Maybe we should have asked, what can everyone actually afford, instead of assuming one person would float it all. We plan these things because you always cover it. That's what you do. That's what you've always done. That's the arrangement. That was never an arrangement. That was me being exploited and not fighting back. There's a difference. And that needs to stop. Why? Why now? Why like this? Why did you have to humiliate them? I set my book down carefully, looked at her directly, really looked at her, saw the anger, the confusion, the genuine inability to understand why I'd drawn this line. Emily, in 5 years of marriage, I've lent your family $8,000. I've gotten back $2,000. Net loss, $6,000. That's not generosity. That's not family support. That's being systematically used. They don't use you. Yes, they do. Every single time they say, we'll sort it later, with no actual plan, no timeline, no specifics. Every time they pay me back partially, $150 here, $200 there, after months of delays. Every time they make me feel guilty for asking about money they promised to return. That's using me, and you've enabled it. You make more than them. You can afford it. That's exactly the problem. That's the excuse. David can afford it, so it's not really a problem that we never pay him back. My financial stability has become your family's justification for exploiting it. That's not okay. It's not exploitation. It's family. You help family. I have been helping. For 5 years. What I'm not doing anymore is being an unlimited ATM. There's a difference between helping and being used, Emily. I've crossed that line repeatedly, and you've never once taken my side. Never once said, hey, we should really pay David back. Never once acknowledged that your family treats me like a resource instead of a person. That's not true. When's the last time you told your dad to pay me back? When's the last time you said, Mom, David covered dinner 6 months ago, we should send him that money? When's the last time you stood up for me instead of making me feel like asking for repayment makes me the bad guy? She couldn't answer. Because the answer was never. She'd never stood up for me. Never advocated for repayment. Never treated my financial boundaries as legitimate. They do treat you like, no, they don't. Your father literally said I'm not hurting for money when I asked for repayment, as if my having money means I shouldn't care about being paid back. Your mother never even acknowledges the debt, just ignores it, pretends it doesn't exist. Your siblings promise next week and then go silent for months. And nobody, not one person, ever says thank you. Nobody shows appreciation. Nobody acts like my generosity is something special I'm choosing to give. They just expect it. And when I finally set a boundary, I'm the cruel one. I'm the villain. I'm the one who embarrassed them. You did embarrass them. I enforced a limit, a reasonable limit, a limit they would have known about if they'd ever asked, if they'd ever treated me like a person with finite resources instead of an infinite piggy bank. You could have warned them about the $500 limit, about all of it. Why? So they could guilt me into raising it? So they could have a chance to pressure me, negotiate, wear me down like they always do? No. I set a boundary. I held it. That's what healthy people do. They don't negotiate their boundaries. They enforce them. It's cruel. It's clear. And if clarity feels cruel, that says more about the relationship dynamics than about me. She stared at me for a long moment. I could see her processing, wrestling with something, some cognitive dissonance between what she wanted to believe and what was obviously true. What do you want from them? Acknowledgement, actual repayment plans with real timelines, respect for my boundaries, the end of "we'll sort it later" as an acceptable response. Real change, Emily. Not promises, not intentions, actual changed behavior. And if they can't do that? Then I maintain my boundaries, and we have a different kind of relationship. One where I don't lend money, where I don't cover group expenses, where I'm pleasant and polite but not financially accessible. That's not family. Neither is systematic exploitation. At least my version has honesty. She left the room again, went back to the couch, back to silence. But something had shifted. Some argument had landed. Some truth had penetrated. I could feel it. Thursday morning, I got a text from Gerald. Can we talk in person? Me. Sure. When? Gerald. Today? 6 p.m. Coffee shop near your place? Me. See you then. I arrived at Starbucks at 5:55 p.m. Gerald was already there, looking tired, older than I remembered, the stress of the last few days showing in the lines around his eyes. I ordered coffee, sat down across from him, waited. I want to apologize, he said. I didn't respond. Let him continue. You're right. We've been taking advantage, not intentionally, but... You're right. Okay. Patricia and I talked about it. About the pattern. How much we've borrowed. How little we've paid back. It's not okay. No, it's not. I want to make it right. Can you send me a list? Everything we owe? I'll pay it back. Actual payment plan. Actual timeline. I pulled out my phone, opened the spreadsheet I'd been keeping. Of course I'd been keeping a spreadsheet. Showed him. 5 years of loans, dates, amounts, repayments, outstanding balances. Total loaned, $7,940. Total repaid, $118.50. Net outstanding, $6,090. He stared at the numbers. Jesus, I didn't realize it was that much. It adds up. I can't pay this all at once. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to acknowledge it and create an actual plan. $500 a month? Would that work? That works. And the Vegas trip, can we start over, plan it properly, with actual budget discussions? Yes, but everyone pays their own share up front. No more sort it later. Fair. We shook hands. He left. I sat there with my coffee, feeling something between victory and sadness. Victory because I'd held the boundary. Sadness because it took a public confrontation to get basic respect. When I got home, Emily was in the living room. Dad called me. Okay. He told me about the spreadsheet, about the $6,000. Okay. I didn't know it was that much. I told you, multiple times. I know, I didn't want to see it, didn't want to believe my family was doing that to you. They were. I'm sorry. I sat next to her. I need you to understand something. I love you. I love your family. But I can't keep being treated like an ATM. If I'd kept going, if I'd covered this trip too, where does it end? When do I get to say no? You could have just said no. I did. I set a limit. That's saying no. I just didn't say it loudly. You said it humiliatingly. I said it clearly. If they found it humiliating, maybe that's because they'd gotten too comfortable assuming unlimited access. She was quiet for a long time. Then, what do we do now? We plan the trip properly. Everyone pays their share. We have fun. We stop operating like my bank account is communal property. And my family? They pay me back $500 a month. We establish new patterns. We move forward. You really kept a spreadsheet? Of course I did. Did you think I was just making up the $8,000 number? I guess I thought you were exaggerating. I wasn't. She leaned against me. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. I'm sorry I made you the bad guy. Thank you. Can we go to Vegas? Just us? Skip the family trip? I laughed. That actually sounds perfect. We booked our own trip. 2 people. Reasonable budget. Split 50-50. No vague promises. No sort it later. Just us. Clear. Simple. Honest. The fallout continued for weeks. Emily's family didn't take the boundary well initially. Melissa sent long texts about how I'd changed and become materialistic. How the old David wouldn't have made such a big deal about money. How family should support each other unconditionally. I responded once. Unconditional support goes both ways. For 5 years, I supported unconditionally. Now I'm asking for basic respect and actual repayment. That's not materialistic. That's balanced. She didn't respond. Ryan tried a different approach. Called me directly. Hey man, I get it. Money stuff is sensitive, but we're family. Can't we just forget about the past and move forward? Moving forward requires addressing the past. Your father is paying me back $500 a month. That's moving forward. Forgetting about $6,000 in debt is enabling the same pattern. But holding on to resentment, I'm not holding resentment. I'm holding accountability. There's a difference. It feels the same from here. That's because you've benefited from the lack of accountability. Now that there is accountability, it feels restrictive. But it's actually just fair. He hung up. Patricia, Emily's mother, was the most interesting response. She didn't text, didn't call, just showed up at our house one Saturday morning. Emily was out. I answered the door. Patricia, David, can we talk? I let her in. Made tea. Sat across from her in the living room. I owe you an apology, she said. Okay. I've been thinking about what Gerald told me, about the money, about the pattern, and I realized something. I never thanked you. Not once. Not ever. I didn't respond. You've been incredibly generous to our family. You've covered dinners, trips, gifts, emergencies, and I just accepted it, like it was owed, like you were supposed to do it. Why? Honestly, because you could afford it, because you make good money, because it was easy to let you handle things, and because... She paused. struggled with the words. Because I resented that you could afford it when we couldn't. That landed heavily. Truth often does. I resented that my daughter married someone who made more than her father ever did, that your stability highlighted our financial stress, that your generosity made me feel less than. So you took advantage of it. Yes, we did. Not consciously, maybe. But yes. And now? Now I understand that what I thought was you being generous was actually you being used, and I'm ashamed. What changes? We pay you back. Gerald already started. $500 this month, $500 next month, every month until it's cleared, and we never ask to use your card again. Ever. Thank you. And David, I am sorry. Genuinely. You deserved better from us. I appreciate that. She left shortly after. Emily came home an hour later. Mom was here? She apologized. Really? Really? What did she say? I told her. The full conversation, the resentment, the acknowledgement, the commitment to change. Emily cried. I didn't know she felt that way, about you, about money. I don't think she knew either until recently. Do you forgive them? I'm not holding a grudge, but forgiveness and trust are different things. They can earn trust back by following through, by actually paying me back, by respecting boundaries. And the $500 limit? Stays. It's not about this anymore. It's about establishing that my resources aren't communal by default. If they need help, they can ask, with specifics, with timelines, with respect. But the assumption of unlimited access is gone. You really changed everything with one limit. I didn't change anything. I just made visible what was always true. There are limits. To money, to generosity, to patience. They operated like there weren't limits. The $500 cap just made it explicit. They're really mad about it. They're mad because limits feel restrictive when you're used to none, but that's their adjustment to make, not mine. Over the next months, Gerald paid reliably. $500 the first month, $500 the second. By month 6, he'd paid $3,000. By month 12, the debt was cleared. He never missed a payment, never asked for extensions, never complained, and the family dynamics shifted, subtly at first, then obviously. They stopped suggesting expensive group activities, stopped assuming I'd cover things, started actually discussing budgets before making plans. Melissa planned a birthday dinner and created a shared spreadsheet. Everyone's portion is $40. Pay the restaurant directly or Venmo me before the dinner. Ryan organized a beach house rental and sent out the details up front. Total cost went $800. 6 couples, $300 per couple, due 2 weeks before the trip. Here's my Venmo. Patricia hosted Thanksgiving and didn't expect anyone to bring elaborate expensive items. Just simple contributions. We're covering the turkey and sides. Can everyone bring a dessert or drinks? They'd learned. Not immediately, not easily, but thoroughly. The $500 limit had taught them something my years of generosity hadn't. I was a person with boundaries, not a resource, not an ATM, a person. And people with boundaries deserve respect. The Vegas trip eventually happened, 18 months after the original plan, with everyone paying their own way. The night before we left, Emily and I were packing. You know what's weird? She said. What? This trip feels more exciting than the original plan. Why? Because nobody owes anybody anything. We're all choosing to be there, paying our own way. No resentment, no debt, just clean. That's what boundaries do. They make relationships cleaner. I wish I'd understood that earlier. I could have saved you a lot of stress. You understand it now. That's what matters. We flew out the next morning, met her family at the Bellagio. They'd booked 3 rooms. Emily and I had our own. Everyone had their own. The first night, we had dinner. Nice restaurant. Everyone relaxed, happy. When the check came, the waiter asked, "One check or separate?" Before anyone could respond, Gerald said, "Separate. 6 checks." The waiter nodded, brought separate checks. Gerald paid his without hesitation. So did everyone else. No drama, no assumptions, no vague promises, just 6 adults paying for their own meals. After dinner, we walked back to the hotel. Gerald fell into step beside me. "You know what I realized?" he said. "What?" "For years I told myself I was being smart, using your generosity, getting a good deal, but I was actually being small, making myself smaller by taking from you instead of standing on my own. I'm glad you see that now. The $500 limit, it was humiliating at first, but it was necessary. I needed to hit that wall. We all did. I didn't do it to humiliate you. I know, you did it to protect yourself, but it ended up teaching us something we needed to learn. We're capable of paying our own way. We just chose not to because you made it easy not to. And now? Now we're better. I'm better. Thank you for that. Even though I resented you for it at the time. You're welcome. The rest of the trip was genuinely fun. No tension, no financial stress, no unpaid debts hanging over everything. Just family, enjoying each other, on equal footing. On the last night, we all gathered in the casino bar, celebrating, laughing, making toasts. Melissa raised her glass. To David, for teaching us that boundaries aren't mean, they're necessary. Everyone clinked glasses, including me. And to all of us, I added, for learning. The trip ended. We flew home, returned to normal life. But the lesson remained, embedded in the family culture now. Nobody asked to use my card. Nobody suggested I cover group expenses. Nobody operated under the assumption that my resources were communal. And when they did need help, which happened occasionally because life happens, they asked. Specifically, with timelines, with respect. Ryan called once. "Hey David, my car needs an emergency repair. $800. I don't have it until next paycheck. Could I borrow it? I'll pay you back in 2 weeks. I can send you the repair invoice if you want proof." Specific amount, specific timeline, specific documentation offered. Sure, sending now. He paid me back in 12 days. That's what boundaries create. Not distance. Clarity. 2 years after the $500 limit incident, Emily and I were having dinner with her parents. Gerald brought up finances. "I want to show you something." He pulled out his phone, showed me a spreadsheet, his own tracking system. After you showed me yours, I started keeping my own, tracking what I borrow, what I owe, what I repay, making sure I never fall into that pattern again. The spreadsheet was detailed, meticulous, a mirror of mine. I'm impressed. I learned from the best. You kept track for 5 years while I pretended the debt didn't exist. Now I keep track because I know it does. Patricia smiled. We're in a good place now, financially, emotionally. We're not where we want to be, but we're managing better. I'm glad. And a lot of that is because you held the line, because you didn't let us keep using you. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe, but you accelerated it. The $500 limit forced us to confront patterns we'd been ignoring for years. After dinner, on the drive home, Emily said, "You changed my family. They changed themselves. Because you gave them no choice. I gave them a choice. Pay their own way or don't go. They chose to pay. That's growth." Do you still have the $500 limit? On that specific card? Yes. But I have other cards for legitimate expenses. The limit isn't about restricting me. It's about signaling that there are limits. Always. Do you think we'll ever go back to how it was? No. Because now they know. They know there's a limit. They know I'll enforce it. They know assumptions don't work anymore. That knowledge changes everything. Are you glad you did it? The limit? Absolutely. Even though it caused so much conflict? The conflict already existed. I just made it visible. Hidden conflicts are worse because they're corrosive. Visible conflicts can be resolved. When did you become so wise about boundaries? When I finally hit mine. She laughed, reached over and squeezed my hand. 3 years after the incident, Emily got a promotion. Big raise, significant increase in earning power. Her family was thrilled, proud, celebratory. At the celebration dinner, Melissa made a joke. "Now you can cover all our expenses, Em." Everyone laughed, including Emily. Then Emily said, completely seriously, "Actually, no. Everyone pays their own way. That's the rule now." More laughter, but different this time. Knowing laughter, acceptance. Melissa nodded. "Fair enough, just testing." "I know, and the answer is no." That's when I knew. The lesson had fully embedded. Emily had learned it too. Not just intellectually, but practically. Boundaries weren't mean, they were necessary. And she'd enforce hers just like I'd enforced mine. 4 years later, I was having coffee with Gerald, regular Saturday morning routine we'd developed. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Sure." "When you set that $500 limit, did you know it would work? Did you know it would change everything?" "Honestly, no. I just knew I couldn't keep going the way we were. The limit was my line in the sand. What happened after? Your family's response. That was up to you." "What if we'd just walked away, cut ties?" "Then I would have been sad, but I wouldn't have backed down. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that others won't like it." "But we didn't walk away." "No, you didn't. You stepped up, paid me back, changed patterns. That's rare, Gerald. A lot of people would have just been angry and stayed angry." "I was angry at first, felt ambushed, betrayed even." "Betrayed?" "Yeah, like you'd set a trap. Let us think we could count on you and then pulled the rug out." "But?" "But then I actually thought about it, really thought about it. And I realized you never promised unlimited access. We just assumed it. And assumptions aren't agreements." "No, they're not. That's what I teach my grandkids now. Don't assume, ask, discuss, agree. Assumptions are where relationships break down." "You have grandkids now?" "Melissa's pregnant. Due in 4 months." "Congratulations." "Thanks. And David? I want you to know, you're going to be Uncle David to this kid. Not Emily's husband, David. Not the guy who used to lend us money. Just Uncle David. Family." That meant more than he knew. We finished our coffee, talked about other things, parted ways. On the drive home, I thought about how far we'd come. From resentment and exploitation to genuine respect and family. All because of a $500 limit. A boundary, a line I refuse to cross. People think boundaries are about restriction, about saying no, about creating distance. They're wrong. Boundaries are about clarity, about defining terms, about making explicit what was previously assumed. And when everyone knows the terms, relationships can actually be healthy. Emily's family and I were healthier now than we'd ever been, not despite the boundary, but because of it. They respected me because I'd demanded respect. They valued me because I'd stopped being an unlimited resource, and I trusted them because they'd proven, through years of consistent behavior, that they could respect boundaries. That's what the $500 limit created. Not resentment, trust. The kind of trust that comes from testing limits and finding them firm, from pushing boundaries and discovering they hold, from learning that no means no, and that limits aren't personal attacks, they're structural realities everyone has to navigate. Emily's family had learned to navigate mine, and I'd learned to trust that they would. That's growth, hard-earned, conflict-forged, genuine. 5 years after the $500 limit, Emily and I were hosting Thanksgiving, her whole family, plus a few friends, big gathering. I was in the kitchen, preparing turkey. Gerald came in to help. "Remember the Vegas trip?" he asked. "Which one? The planned one or the actual one?" "Both. The one that didn't happen because of your limit, and the one that did happen after we all got our shit together." "I remember. I think about that a lot. About how close we came to losing you. Losing this." He gestured around. The full house. The family gathered. The relationships restored. you wouldn't have lost me. We might have, if we'd reacted differently. If we'd doubled down on entitlement instead of choosing growth. But you didn't, because you didn't give us a choice. The limit was firm, clear, non-negotiable. We could accept it or leave. We chose to accept it. I'm glad you did. Me too. You know what's funny? At the time, I thought $500 was insultingly low. Now I realize it was perfectly calibrated, low enough to force us to confront the pattern, high enough that we couldn't claim you were being totally unreasonable. I hadn't thought about it that way. You set boundaries like a chess player, always 3 moves ahead. I laughed. I was just trying to protect myself. And you did. And in protecting yourself, you protected us too, from our own worst patterns. Patricia called from the living room. Gerald, David, food's getting cold. We brought out the turkey. Everyone gathered around the table. 20 people. Family and friends. All of them there by choice. All of them contributing. Before we ate, Emily raised her glass. I want to make a toast. 5 years ago, David did something that seemed mean at the time, but turned out to be the best thing for our family. He set a boundary. He held it. He taught us that respect isn't optional and that assumptions aren't agreements. We're all better for it. So thank you, David, for loving us enough to demand better from us. Everyone clinked glasses. To David. I felt genuinely moved. And to all of you, for being willing to learn, for choosing growth over resentment, for proving that boundaries don't destroy relationships, they clarify them. To boundaries! Someone shouted. Everyone laughed, drank, started eating. After dinner, I was cleaning up in the kitchen. Emily joined me. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how different everything is now, how much healthier. Because of the limit? Because of the limit. Because of the boundary. Because I finally stopped accepting unlimited access as normal. Do you still have it? The $500 cap? On that card? Yeah. But I rarely use that card anymore. It's more symbolic now than functional. Symbolic of what? That there are always limits, to money, to generosity, to patience, and that acknowledging limits is healthier than pretending they don't exist. You know what I learned from all this? What? That asking for limits feels rude until you're the limit. Then it feels necessary. Exactly. She kissed me. Went back to the guests. I stood there, hands in soapy water, thinking about the journey. 5 years ago, I'd set a $500 spending cap, a limit, a boundary. They'd hit it in 3 minutes. And in hitting it, they'd learned something crucial. Access isn't ownership. Generosity isn't unlimited. And relationships require respect, not just resources. They wanted flexibility. I gave them clarity. $500, that's the limit. That's the sorting. And that clarity, that firm, non-negotiable boundary, had saved us all. From resentment, from exploitation, from relationships built on unstated assumptions and unmet expectations. The limit had set us free, and we were better for it. All of us. That's what boundaries do when you hold them. Not destroy, clarify, not punish, protect, not reject, respect. The limit wasn't the end of our relationship. It was the beginning of a real one, built on truth, sustained by respect, strengthened by clear lines that everyone finally understood. They'd wanted unlimited access. I'd given them exactly $500, and that $500 had taught them what $8,000 in generosity never could, that I was a person with limits. And limits, when respected, create space for real love to grow. The end.